My name is R.W.Smith and I'm a watchmaker here on the Isle of Man. My watchmaking experiences go back now over 20 years, and what I'd like to talk to you about is how I've come to be working here on the Isle of Man and also making the types of watches that I am doing. We have a workshop here where we employ 7 people, 5 of whom are involved in the making and finishing of my wristwatches. It's a very specialised workshop because we work on just 10 pieces per year, and we're making them to a very high standard, and what I'm trying to do is to put back some of the making into English watchmaking. My approach and philosophy to watchmaking started over 20 years ago, and I'd been working at a watch repairer's in Manchester area, and I often recalled a time when, while at college, George Daniels came and lectured us and told us about how to make watches and his endeavours with the co-axial escapement. And this man and his work kept coming back to me, and so I decided one day to leave work and start to make my own pocket watches. And it's a very interesting sort of road that I took, and for the next 8 years I started to work on my very first pocket watches, and over the course of 8 years I had to learn and perfect all the 25 to 30 different skills that are involved in the making of a handmade pocket watch. My approach and philosophy to watchmaking really started to build up when I first started to undertake the making of my very first pocket watch. At the time I was using George's book Watchmaking as my guide, but also I was looking at some of the early English pocket watches, and it's very interesting to see these watches. There's one watch in particular that I remember, and it had been made by a man called Thomas Mudge, a very famous world-renowned maker. And this was a gold case pocket watch with an enamel dial and blued steel hands. And on stripping down of the watch I was struck by the quality of the piece, and even the most insignificant components within the watch were made to a very high standard, and that for me was very interesting. And on further inspection and experience on these watches I began to realise the way these watches had sort of come about. And basically, if you go back into history, you find that these watches were made by groups of artisan tradespeople. 25 to 30 were involved in the making of one pocket watch, and you'd have one man who would make the dials, another man would make the hands, you'd have 5 trades involved in the making of a pocket watch case. And so I think this helped to maintain a very high quality, high level of workmanship in the English work. And this was really something that I wanted to try and put into my work, into my watches. So making of my pocket watches was a very interesting period of my life, and it consumed 7.5 years of my time. And throughout that period I improved on all the different skills and so on which are required to make a pocket watch or even a wristwatch by hand. The one thing that I lacked though was wristwatch experience. After finishing my second pocket watch, which if you add it onto my first pocket watch, in total I'd been making these 2 pieces for 7.5 years, and during that time I'd spent it just concentrating on learning these 25 to 30 different disciplines. And after showing the second pocket watch to George Daniels, he finally gave me the approval, and several months after that meeting he offered me a position here in the Isle of Man, assisting him on the making of the Millennium pieces. And that was for me a great experience. It was 3.5 years working with the great man himself, and during that period I learnt a huge amount. You could see the man working day in, day out, and to be able to see everything that he talked about in his book put into action was really like the finest finishing school anybody could wish for. And for me it gave me the confidence to then on leaving George to be able to leave his workshop and go out and start to make my very first production piece, which was a Series 1 wristwatch. That piece was made in a small workshop that I created back at my house, and for that particular piece I bought in a train of wheels and a scament, balance and handset mechanism and so on. But I had to build the cases, the dials, the hands, the calendar mechanism and all the plates and so on. So it was a very, very labour intensive project for me, particularly when you're working on your own. But also what it did do is it sort of inspired me, and it gave me a great amount of knowledge which enabled me to go further with the Series 2, which was a wristwatch which I wanted to really try and put some of this making back into English watchmaking. And so to do that I knew that I had to create as much, or if not all, of the wristwatch in-house. And so now here we are today. We delivered our first Series 2 in 2006, and to date we've delivered 35 pieces. Every single one of those pieces has been completely unique. Clients can decide on the finish, on the materials we use to make the cases, the dials, the hands, even the decoration of the movement or the dial. There are limitless choices that can be made, and what we are doing is creating a very, very bespoke wristwatch made to a very, very high standard, and something which I hope puts some of the making back into watchmaking. In our workshop it's probably one of the most unique workshops in the world. A client can come to the door, knock on the door, and come in with his ideas for a wristwatch or a pocket watch, and between us we can sit down and I can sketch out a watch, sketch out ideas, and then after the initial consultation it's really down to me to be able to start to create and design and develop a wristwatch or a pocket watch for the client. And in our workshop we make the cases, the dials, the hands, and 99% of the mechanism that goes inside that watch. So on delivery, the client will go away with a unique piece. No other watch made to that style, standard, anywhere in the world. And this is something that I'm particularly very proud of in our workshop.